All right, good evening, everybody. This is the Sunbury Board of Zoning Appeals. It is 5:30 on November 21st. We will start with a silent prayer and then the Pledge of Allegiance. You'll stand for me, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Hennessy, would you please take a roll call?
Ms. Frost.
Here.
Ms. Crawford.
Here.
Mr. Brunel. Here. Mr. Long. Here. Mr. Whitman. Here. Mr. Shrewsbury is absent. We have a quorum.
All right, first we need to approve our minutes from our last meeting in September. We did not meet in October, so we're gonna go all the way back to September. Does anybody have any discussion on the minutes, or would anyone like to?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Ms. Crawford makes a motion to approve the minutes.
Second. All right, Ms. Crawford.
Yes.
Mr. Brunel.
Yes.
Mr. Long.
Yes.
Mr. Whitman.
Yes.
Ms. Frost.
Yes.
5 yeas.
Right. Tonight we're going to be discussing a variance request. I'd like to ask anyone in the audience if you would like to speak. If you have any thought that you would speak, we need to swear you in. And will you be doing that,
I
Mr.?
can do that. Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, look, everybody stand. Anyone who wants. Just raise your right hand and repeat after me. I hereby swear or affirm that the testimony or don't repeat after me, just affirm this. I hereby swear or affirm the testimony I'm about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God under penalties of perjury.
I do.
Yes. And one other thing, just if I may, we're being recorded. We don't have a court reporter here tonight. It is being recorded. So when you guys come up, please come to the lectern and speak clearly into the microphone. State your name, state your residence. That way it's clear for the record that's being recorded who you are and what you're doing. Does that make sense? Okay.
Thank you. So the variance we have before us, there's two of them. One is a front yard setback and one is a minimum lot size variance request. I'll just read what we have and then I will let you in the audience speak. So the first variance is the reduction of the front yard setback from 40 feet to 20 feet. The second request is for the minimum lot area in our zoning ordinance is 12,000 square feet, and they would like it reduced to 6,224 square feet to build in. In our board packet, we do have, this is the LG Carroll Edition plat map that we'll be referencing. It's a historical document from 1955. And then we also have information provided from the applicant as location maps, ownership of the property, and examples of other platted subdivisions. Is there anything else
So
that
the
you
exhibits
needed
for the record, maybe?
for the record?
I
Yeah.
can go ahead and do that.
Okay.
So So for purposes of the record and off the record, prior to going on the record, I went over the first one with the applicant and Mr. Foreman, but I have marked as Exhibit A tonight 11 total pages, which includes the variance application and the narrative that was submitted with that, the legal description of the parcel, the auditor's property card information, the additional supplemental narrative that was submitted on October 19th by the applicant, which includes plot plans, Delaware County Auditor's page, some example documents on other plans, plan of Miller's Cove, which was submitted, the LG Carroll subdivision that you had described earlier, Madam Chairperson, and then the final LG Carroll additional lot square footage that was provided this evening by the applicant. So all that together is Exhibit A. Exhibit B is a 5-page document that includes the public notice on the variance, the proof of mailing to the affected property owners, and the public notice that was posted by website. Again, that's Exhibit B, 5 pages. And then Exhibit C is also a 5-page document, which is just the staff report prepared by the Mr. Piles as the administrator and zoning inspector, which is a 5-page document. So those are Exhibits A, B, and C. So I would move to admit those at this time.
Thank you. Would you like to tell us your request tonight? Would you like to speak to it, or would you like us to just start discussions?
You need me to state my name?
Yes, please.
Okay. Todd Helber. I'm the owner of this parcel. So, I mean, I guess I don't really know what more I can add other than, you know, what is in the narrative that was part of this application. I mean, I have 2 narratives that was part of this application. I don't really know what more I can add. If you've all read that narrative, I don't know. But I guess my biggest thing is just that, you know, this is not a newly developed lot. This is not a lot split. You know, our argument way back when we met with Steve, you know, was what separates this from what I see going on with Romanelli and Hughes, what I see going on with Pulte. What's the difference? Because they're building on lots that are smaller, quite frankly. And his comeback was those are planned developments. So was this. This was a planned development. It was approved planned development. But I guess I don't understand, you know, what differentiates this from those?
And is that why you provided the examples from the other
Yes.
subdivisions? Okay.
But I mean, as I say, I tried to put my, you know, thoughts all into the narrative and that's, I don't know what else I can say about it. I mean, that's just where I'm at with it. I mean,
Sure.
it was approved, you know, so why are we reinventing that or trying to change that? I mean, I'm not asking for a new lot, you know, so anyways.
I have a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
Steve, let me ask a question first. To his point, you know, what's the difference? Isn't the difference is that when this was a development, a planned development way back when, then at some point in time, the ordinance came in and said, you know, here's the game rules going forward. Isn't that what makes it different?
But why don't those game rules apply to Pulte or Romanelli and Hughes?
Because they are applicable to everybody, I guess.
I can answer that, which might help you a little bit too, from my opinion, if you want me to.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I think he deserves an answer.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you're kind of hinting at this small non-conforming lot of record which is contained in our current ordinance. There's a provision which provides for, in certain circumstances, if a lot qualifies and meets the definition of a small non-conforming lot of record, that it would be buildable without the requirements of obtaining a variance, okay? So prior to the submittal of this variance application, and Mr. Halbert had referenced speaking with Steve, earlier this year, there was some discussions that were had regarding this lot with the city administrator. And I was present for some of that as well and did some analysis. Part of the analysis that was done was whether or not this lot did meet the definition of a small non-conforming lot of record. So we looked at it in that regard, and it was determined that it doesn't, for the reasons that were set forth in that memorandum. So because it doesn't meet that definition of a small non-conforming lot of record, that puts us in this variance. In order for it to be buildable, the applicant has to obtain a variance, which is what they're done. And now they're asking you to approve, or at least hear it, approve or deny it. And they obviously want it approved. The zoning is zoned residential. There is zoning, as to your point, Mr. Gunnell, in the city, which is planned residential or planned industrial. That's a separate type of zoning. It's not applicable here, even though there's a subdivision that was planned back in the 50s, as you referenced. That's true, but the zoning is residential. So what this board is determining, we're dealing with what is the here and now. And the here and now is that under the residential R3 zoning, the lot isn't buildable, absent obtaining variances. And again, if it had met the definition of single non-conforming lot of record, we wouldn't be here, because at least with respect to these, what's requested in these applications, it would have been buildable already if it had met the definition, but it doesn't. So that way, where we are is then you are charged with the decision as to whether you want to grant the variance or not. And you certainly can. You don't have to. That's what, your decision is to do tonight, is to apply, the facts as presented through testimony and documentary evidence as it's been submitted to you, to the criteria of the zoning code, the Duncan factors that are set forth in the memorandum that was provided by Mr. Piles, as well as the other issue that was raised in the memorandum as to any legitimate investment-based expectations. My opinion, based on my research of the case law, is that where you have a situation where a landowner acquired a property, purchased property after the zoning regulations were already in place that made it not buildable, they don't have legitimate investment-based expectations in that property, because they took ownership with it already not being able to be buildable. And it's my opinion, those are the circumstances here. So again, that does not mean that you have to deny it. That does not mean that you have to approve it. That doesn't have to mean that you do anything. It's just, to the extent there's evidence that is presented to you, or you perceive it to go down that road of investment-based expectations, I just wanted to make you aware for your consideration what my opinion of the status of the law as to that is. Hopefully that
No, that's a great explanation and on a convoluted fact pattern.
it's pretty convoluted.
But I have a couple other questions for you, sir. And maybe you can chime in as well. What other parcels in this area that this gentleman's interested in has the same kind of fact pattern where, I see in this exhibit, whatever you call it, there are a variety of different lots that are well below the 12,000. So is there a similar case at any point in time wherein it was less than the 12,000 that approval was given to allow a lot owner to build something less than 12,000 on a 12,000 square foot lot and less than a 6,000 square foot building? Is there precedent for that?
I am not sure whether this issue was researched with that specific issue. I know I think the applicant brought with them.
Are you referring to a planned development or an unplanned?
Just the lots in which your lot sits, that general area.
Within that LG or that.
Yeah, I'm just making.
Last sheet is. I apologize. I thought that was back.
I can't read it when it's sideways.
But it's this one.
Okay, well, that's here. It's just stated differently.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so then these are examples of lots that are less than 12,000 square feet. Okay, with, square footage of housings of a variety of things. So what I'm just trying to understand to help do the analysis it appears that it has, the question is when, okay? But, there has been permission to do something on a lot less than 12,000 square feet and of sizes of,
So let me just, I'll chime in a little bit. I think what Mr. Whitney was getting at is I'm not sure that they're the same set of facts, but they're similar. So, yes, there are other parcels in the area that are, where there's a structure on it, where it's less than 12,000 square foot lot. But it appears as if most of those were built prior to
the ordinance.
the oldest ordinance that we could find as it relates to the city zoning ordinance. So they probably didn't come in and get a variance because there may not have been a zoning ordinance in place at the time. Now, so that's sort of point number one. Like I said, so not maybe the same set of facts, but you certainly have properties that are on, you have houses that are on properties less than 12,000 square foot of parcel space. And then there are, as I think we had talked about just a little bit before, there are a couple of parcels that are in the area, not the LG Carroll subdivision, but that are nearby, where there is a vacant lot next to another lot owned by the same owner, that's sitting vacant at the moment. But again, they've not come in and asked for a variance to build anything on that vacant portion. So they may have gotten approval to build the original structure, but the original structure on the combined lot, met the requirements at the time of the construction, if that helps.
Yeah, so just to draw a finer point on it. So those parcels that preceded the ordinance that's applicable today, those adjustments, so on, et cetera, occurred prior to the ordinance that this gentleman's running up to against. Is that correct?
Right. And then that becomes sort of, as the new ordinance came into effect, those were non-conforming uses that.
So if they had met the definition of a small non-conforming lot at that time, they potentially could have been built on at that time, subject to the discontinuance language, again, to get it more convoluted to your, again, Mr. Gunnell, there's a period in which because again, obviously what would be unconstitutional and what the code is trying to take into effect to prevent is someone who owns a lot now, I own it, and then tomorrow the regulation is enacted that now renders my lot unbuildable, and suddenly I've been completely divested of my economic interest in the lot. So in that case where the regulation is changed, there's that window which would allow a now non-conforming lot to be built upon. But if it's not exercised within that amount of time, then the
2-year window.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
I have 2 more questions for you. Did you know when you purchased this property that you would have problems if you wanted to build on this parcel in question?
No, absolutely not, because the owners that had been there, as I had stated in my narrative, they've been there for 50 or 60 years. And so the family that I bought it from or was in contract with had always conveyed to me that that was a buildable lot.
Okay. One last question for you, please. What would you do with that lot if a variance isn't granted?
If it's not granted?
Right.
It's a good question. I'm not sure.
I know, that's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm not sure. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's worth a whole lot at that point. So I don't know. I'd have to go back to the drawing board. That was never my thoughts. It was never the intention. I always thought that it was a buildable lot. And I'm still confused to your point. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and belabor. I'm still confused, under the R3, how it is, differentiates from these other planned developments. I mean, I heard what you said, but I mean, this was a planned development. I mean, it wasn't recent, but it was a planned development that was approved. And I mean, so why does Romelli and Hughes get to build, their house on a planned development under the R3 on a smaller lot than mine? And it's okay, but it's not okay for me. I'm still a little bit lost on that.
So just for point of clarification, again, we're talking about, I'm not exactly 100% sure what we're talking about. I understand you're referencing Romanelli. To the extent someone is applying for what would be a zoning change in a planned situation from one zoning to another, that's not under R3. So planned residential is a separate section of the code with its own development.
Different rules than what we're talking about on this gentleman's property.
Precisely. And although I understand what you're saying, certainly I get it. The reality, which is what I'm advising the board about, the legal ramifications of this is R3. So we are looking at R3. We're not looking at planned residential, planned industrial, anything else. It's R3. And under the R3 code, 12,000 square feet is the minimum for a lot size. So that's,
And then the Romanelli and Hughes guys or Pulte or whatever would have their own lot sizes based on the rules that are applicable to that property, correct?
that's correct.
And
Okay.
it's not, and you're saying that that's not R3.
Again, if someone's making an application, we're speaking in hypotheticals here, I guess, but under a planned residential development, it's not under R3. That's correct. The separate section of code.
Thank you, Vic.
Yeah.
That answer the question in your mind?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I still don't, I don't understand how they can get away with it. And this has been that way for over 50 years, I mean.
Well, let me ask you this. Let me see if I can paraphrase what I'm sensing as your disconnect, okay? So you have your property that's under this R3 rules, which has brought you here to hopefully get a variance to that property. And then you're looking down the road at the Pulte and Romanelli and Hughes, and those lots may be smaller than your lot, and you're saying, what gives? How can they, build there on this lot with that size, which is smaller or maybe the same size as what I'm talking about? That's what you're having a problem reconciling.
Yeah, no, and I get it. If you're saying it's not R3 and it falls under a different, they get a different code or different, the same zoning doesn't apply because it's, a subdivision. It's not R3. I get it. I've not researched it out enough, I guess, to verify that if that's what you're saying.
But again, just to be clear, make your pitch. This is your opportunity to convince this board that the variance should be granted. Okay?
What's the harm if the variance is granted to the public?
What's the harm?
To the public, if that variance is granted?
I don't think there is any. I think it's good for the city, quite frankly, because it's just additional tax dollars.
Has any of your neighbors voiced objections to?
Not me. I mean, I know most all the neighbors there. Nobody has said anything to me negative about it.
Do you mind if we go through each of the Duncan criteria to help us answer the questions? I know that you're
Yeah, great
asking
idea.
some of these questions. So we need to decide whether the property in question will yield a reasonable return or whether there can be beneficial use of the property without the variance. So if there is not a variance granted, you don't know what you would do with it, but you
Right.
can't build on it.
Right.
He did not state his address.
Yeah, Mr. Foreman, can you maybe go to the microphone just for the court reporters? Just for the court reporters purposes.
All I was saying was he did not state his address. He's no longer a resident of Sunbury. So he's got no need to come down here and mow grass.
Okay.
So that's answers your question.
Why don't you, again, not first state your name and your address. We'll go backwards
I'm
here.
out. Mike Foreman. I'm a broker owner of Foreman Realtors. Been in business here in Sunbury for 46 years. Todd's hired me last year to market his property. I have attached information here on this packet. I just wanted to point out that he isn't going to be here to mow the grass, so it's not going to be maintained. And I know how you guys feel about that. My clients get letters from you guys every summer when they don't live in the area.
Okay,
Go ahead.
thank you. In my opinion, the property would not yield a reasonable return without the variance.
I agree. I agree.
Is the variance substantial? Substantial meaning that it would set a precedent? Or,
Can I speak to that? Okay. This last sheet, I really apologize. I cannot believe this wasn't in the packets, okay? But this is a neighborhood. We can talk about plan unit development, we can talk about R3, we can talk about all different kinds of descriptions, but this is a neighborhood. It's a 1955 neighborhood. All the lots are built on except for this lot. Okay. And I went over there with a laser and I went through every lot in that subdivision other than the two that are beside his property, because the
Okay.
surveyor did those.
okay,
So the surveyor is a whole lot more detailed than I am. Okay. So if you unfold your plat of the LG Carroll addition, you see there's lot numbers on there. And if you follow those lot numbers on here, I don't want to talk about what we're asking for as far as the variance, but I want to talk to you about what R3 is. And there isn't one, excuse me, there's one out of these 9 or 10 lots that cover that. Okay. It happens to be a 2-story home, so it has 2,000 square feet. Okay. He's agreeing, he hired a surveyor to lay this out to get the least amount of variances possible. Okay, he could be in here asking for the fixed variances, but he knows that you're sensitive to that. So he's agreed to build 1,450 square foot home. That's your minimum under R3. Okay. There's very few homes here. I guess I lied. We have 2 instead of 1. Or no, one's a 4-family. Lot 495, which is right next door to this property, is actually a 4-family home,
right.
not a single family home. Okay. So that's why the square footage is so high. The lot square footage of 1,200 square feet, there's 2 out of what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10. So every lot in this neighborhood is smaller. So that's what this neighborhood looks like.
Yep.
Okay. And then again, I'm not a surveyor, but I went along the edge of the road on East Street, which is the back of this subdivision. And I shot my laser from the edge of the pavement to the house. And that's what the last set of numbers are. The laser measurement is 32 feet, 31 feet, 31 feet, 29 feet, 27 feet, 34 feet. Okay. The right of way on East Street is 49.5. That's on the plat here. It's right there on the bottom of the plat. That's not my guess. Okay. So the measurement of the street pavement is 22 feet. So I was setting at 22 feet with my laser shooting the house. The right of way, which is, he's asking for a 20-foot variance from the right of way. If you take the right of way from these, not one of these houses is 20 feet. They're all under 20 feet from the right of way. Okay.
Correct.
So they're pretty doggone close to the street. Okay.
I would also say that most of these houses were built before
I
the
understand.
zoning ordinance was in effect.
Right. But this is the neighborhood.
Yes.
This is the neighborhood. So he's going to be one of the bigger houses in the neighborhood. He's not trying to be similar to the neighborhood. He's meeting the R3 zoning there. Okay. Now, if you go to the second page of this, the surveyor on this plat showed in the building envelope, and that's what this is a building envelope. Okay. The 4-family to the right of the home, or excuse me, the 4-family to the right of the lot is the setbacks 20 feet in the right of way line. Okay. The home to the left of this is also happens to be 20 feet. So when he's making a variance request from 40 to 20, he's actually asking, can I be like the rest of the neighborhood on the same street? So he's not asking for anything new. I think one of those 4 questions you're going to read talks about, is this new or different in the neighborhood? And that, in this case, it's not. And I did not shoot those homes because the surveyor will go out more detail than I. So he's the one that's determined the 20 feet. If that had been 18 feet, we'd be asking for 18 feet.
Mhm.
If it was 24 feet, we'd have been asking for 24 feet. We just want to be the same as the guys on each side.
Sure.
Okay. So that's the stuff. I just wanted to let you know what the neighborhood is. Again, I agree 100%. This was not 1955. That's not 2022. He's been involved in the property since 2006. Okay. He's owned this for a long time. There's been tax bills sent out on this lot since 1955. Somebody's been paying tax for a lot of years with the understanding this was a usable lot. Okay. So that's why he has a problem understanding or comprehending, you know, how this gets taken away. So any questions for me? Because I talk way too much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
So we still need to answer question 2 of the Duncan, whether this variance is substantial.
I don't think it is. And I think it's for the reasons he cited, you know, I mean, what I think the problem is the timing issue of when the ordinance came in. You know, this would have been good to go if he had built it in the 60s or whatever before the thing came in. So what's causing the problem that he's trying to address is the ordinance that says, hey, these are the new rules that apply to this thing, this lot. But if I look at, you know, all the examples that this gentleman did, you know, none of them, well, I should say a few of them are 12,000, you know, and I don't think it would be an odd duck per se if it would be approved to go forward. That's how I see it.
Okay.
Yeah, I have to admit, I thought the lot was small, driving by it as often as I do. But seeing the actual measurements and the sizes of these homes and the rest of these lots, he's definitely asking for the same thing.
So then that gets into question 3, whether the essential character of the neighborhood will be substantially altered or whether adjoining properties would suffer a substantial detriment as a result of the variance. I would say no, because they're asking to be similar to all of the other houses in that block.
I would agree with that.
Same.
Would this variance adversely affect the delivery of governmental services?
I don't see how.
I don't see how it would either.
I do not foresee that.
No. Whether or not the property owner purchased the property with the knowledge of the zoning restriction. So, sir, you bought both lots back in 2010. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then in May of this year, you sold one of those lots. And in doing so, that changed the zoning that you would fall under, or the ordinance. Because they were joined together, they had the same frontage. They were considered a non-conforming?
They were never a single lot.
Yeah,
Separate.
I would say again, that would be inaccurate because they were in the same ownership and they had continuous frontage. So they were not ever a single non-conforming lot of record because of that.
Okay,
This lot potentially would have been, had it been in separate ownership from the neighboring lot. And at the time the ordinance took effect, that were the case, but those aren't the facts.
okay,
So that's why we're not in that single non-conforming lot of record arena, but we're in the variance arena.
okay. So I would say that you did not know that there would be a zoning issue when you purchased the property.
That's correct.
Okay. Question 6 is whether the property owner's predicament feasibly can be obviated through some method other than a variance. I would say no, that if we do not grant this variance, there is nothing else,
I agree.
unless you want to build a garage, I think.
I thought Steve shut us down on that as well. I mean, we talked to them about that maybe being a possibility, but.
And to be able to build a structure on that lot, we have to give both variances, so it's not possible to meet the square footage. Clearly, you can't meet the 12,000 because the lot isn't even that big. You have to do the 20 feet in order to hit the square footage.
Yes. In order to meet the house square footage, the 1460.
Sir, could you?
Yeah,
Yes. Yes, I think so. I mean, I think the 20 feet, the 20 feet setback in the front is what you're talking about.
Yes.
That would be critical. The two variances that you go.
you're still going to meet the 4 feet on the sides, and is it 40 feet to the back?
Yeah.
And in order to do 40 feet on the front, you have what remaining? Maybe
There was,
you wouldn't have any room on the one side, and you might have 20 feet, 30 feet on the other. I don't even think you could get a square footage at 40 feet, so.
but doesn't the code mention, using city services? So like water and sewer. So if a garage were built that didn't have any sewer or water usage. I'm not sure what the code would say about that, but. Not that it's not our not a job to tell you what to build in there.
The sewer goes alongside the property on the left.
Okay,
This stuff's already been determined. The lot's fully serviceable with city utilities, gas, water, the whole kit and caboodle. I did this actually back in January.
okay.
Okay, Steve has no memory. Dale Wampler, who I talked to about the sewer, right after I met with Steve, he has a memory of it.
Okay,
Okay, so there is no issues with city utilities as such.
thank you. All right, so question 7 is whether the spirit and intent behind the zoning requirement would be observed and substantial justice done by granting the variance. So if we said no to the variance, we've already said that it's not substantial. So that meets half of this. Is our intent still in place if we would grant a variance? I mean, are we setting up a precedence?
I think we're following the process, okay? You know, they're here today because they didn't get a decision they liked at the first level. And the process is to come through and look at these factors, which are guidelines. Other things, you know, he had A, B, C, D, which he answered. So I think the process is here, and I think, you know, we have to sit here and look at this and say, you know, what's the neighborhood?
Mhm.
Okay, you know, again, I think the issue, if I could say it, is it's a timing issue of when the ordinance came in, it caused a roadblock for him, you know. So, but for maybe build this stuff in 1960, nobody would be sitting here today talking about this.
Well, how many other neighborhoods that are this old are sitting with empty lots where this could potentially even
Don't know.
come,
Probably not
come
many.
before us? It seems like most places there are empty lots are these new developments.
Yeah, right.
So they would fall under a.
You're already, it's right, all different rules, so.
Mhm.
Probability is low.
So then the answer to number 7 would,
I think is yes.
yes. So if we were to grant this lot size variance, then the second variance for the setback requirement hinges upon that. We can't only grant a variance for the setback and not the lot size, because
Right, you gotta have correct.
it doesn't make
You
any
gotta have
sense.
both.
Okay. Does anyone else have any further discussion on this? Any more questions?
I don't think so. I'm just doing the math in my head in the sense of if the square footage was reduced to be consistent with the square footage, would you still meet other criteria? And I still don't think, based on the size of the lot, if you went back to 40 feet, you would even be able to meet the 1,200 square feet of the other home. So looking at this proposal, I'm not necessarily seeing other alternatives
Mhm.
to the request either. So I feel like they are doing their best at being as forgiving, I guess, in the sense of asking for the 2 variances to be able to make this happen, but not asking for too much.
I just want to clarify one point too, just to make sure it's clear. As the board's aware, you're here on a variance application. It's not on an appeal from any decision made by the city administrator or zoning decision. Those are 2 different functions. So yes, there were some prior discussions that were had, but the zoning code is what the zoning code is right now. So it is, in my opinion, the zoning code does not permit this building absent the granting of the variance. So that's why it's not, because what is not before the board is making any type of determination as to what happened prior to this. You're here on this variance.
Understand.
That's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did some math reading the zoning ordinance, and on a lot, you are not allowed to have more than 25% of the lot as buildable. So if your lot is 6,224 square feet, what you have is a building size of 1,450 works. You cannot go above 1,556 square feet. So you have 100 square feet to play with. Just need that noted, that in your notes, it said a minimum of 1,450 square feet building size. Just want to note that you don't have a lot of wiggle room there.
Gotcha.
Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion?
Do we need to close the public hearing?
No, I'd say do it in the public hearing. Yeah. Yes. Motion second would be appropriate if you're ready.
Well, we need to have a, we need
I
to,
didn't make it.
need to make a motion. The lawyer can't make it. For you.
Both variances? Or should they be separate?
They're separate, so we need to do one at a time.
I'll make a motion to approve the first variance.
Of the lot size.
Of the lot size, yes, I'm sorry. Is this before we go into deliberation? Because I had some supplemental things that I thought might be appropriate.
Well, this, the motion is on the floor, so there won't be any deliberation, I guess, unless you want to have, if you want to have deliberation, I guess I would speak to your chairperson and see if you can have some deliberations.
Some thoughts or consideration. You know, I'm all for granting the 2 variances.
Okay.
But I thought it might be appropriate to add some supplementary conditions. That be that they have to start the construction within 2 years, and they have to, you know, today's date, okay, and they have to complete the construction within 12 months. Otherwise, all bets are off, they got to start at ground zero. Is that appropriate, Vic?
It is, I think it's certainly within the board's discretion to adopt that. That would be up for discussion, I think. You can't, you have the ability to employ safeguards, et cetera. So
I just want to hold their feet to the fire that they act and this isn't a reoccurrence again. So if they don't do it, then it's as though nothing was approved. And if whoever's here probably would not be very receptive to hearing it again.
Sure.
I think there's already an ordinance that states that if you're granted a use, you have to, within a year's time period, you have to act on that. Otherwise, that is taken away.
I don't think that is true with respect to variances. There
No.
are aspects of the code, which I think is, zoning certificate being one. If that's granted, then it has to occur within a year. I believe you're right.
Okay,
But a variance runs with the land. So there's no timeline unless there's one that is imposed at this point through discussion, motion, second, and vote by your board. So I would say to the extent you want something like that in place, you need to put it in place now.
Can we just confirm, what is your time frame? Just to confirm?
I'm not speaking for him, okay, but I think.
State your name so we know who you're speaking for.
Okay, this is Mike Foreman. I'm speaking on behalf of property rights. Your legal counsel just stated that the variance runs with the land. Okay, so a time frame or the owner, I don't know that it makes any difference. Okay, so he may end up doing something here. He may end up selling the property to somebody that wants to do something. Okay, he's the owner of the property, so he has the rights to the property.
that's right, because that was noted in your narrative that either you would build on it or you would sell it with the intent that it would be built on. Okay,
So for him to state an exact date as to what he's doing or what his time frame is would not be an honest situation. And so that's, he's
Yeah,
just
but
said
the
what
key point is it would run with the land. So whatever was granted here would be binding on his successors.
Correct.
Whoever purchased the property. So it would be, they would have to abide by that or they lose the game.
Right, right. Okay. I'm just saying for him to give a definite date. is
Got it.
not-
Yeah, I
Yeah,
understand.
that's
Sure.
probably not something that would.
No, I agree.
Anything else?
So I'm just curious then, if we were to propose a 2-year window, would that be sufficient? I mean, I think
Since interest rates have doubled. I don't, I think 2 years would be really, really tight. I wouldn't want to see a year or something like that. I think the other thing is, and he brought it up, kind of goes along with this. We're talking about doing something for the owner of the property, but the village is going to get nice tax dollars and utility bills paid and sewer plant. I mean, this is going to become an income producing property for the village.
Yeah.
So if you want to put a time frame on it, that's up to you. I would not want to do it too short because you're killing your own resource of revenue. So that's up to you guys to decide. I mean, you want to add to this?
No, that's, I guess my, indicated in the narrative, I just would like to be able to exercise my right either way. I didn't know really where I stood, I mean, at least that's the way it's been ever since I sold the first lot and found out then, after the fact that this was not a buildable lot. I mean, we initially, was trying to market it as a buildable lot and, I lost, already a lot of potential buyers, because nobody could really, it was not confirmed, it was a buildable lot or not. So, I don't know, to answer your question, when I build on it, if I would build. I mean, honestly, from an investment standpoint, I have no intention of living there. But I have had thoughts of maybe building this 1,150 square foot home and selling it,
okay, thank you. Mr. Gunnell, what is your intent with putting a time limit on this?
I just think it closes the loop, you know, and, you know, their comment or was stated here that a 2-year window would give them a chance that they have to start construction within that 2-year window from today's date. Okay, so we have a finite period, you know, which addresses his uncertainty as to what he's going to do. But if he sells the property to somebody else, then as it runs with the land, those obligations would be imposed on them. So they really have 3 years. They just got to start the construction within a 2-year period. And then they have 12 months, which I think is more than a reasonable amount of time for a house of this square footage to complete that in a 12-month period. So I just think I like parameters. If we're agreeing to something, then everybody knows what the game is. And then if that isn't done, then all bets are off. The approval of the variances, you know, or they cease to exist. And good luck if they want to try to go through the process again. Yeah, where that would be commenced. Just an idea.
I would be open to the 2-year time limit. I think the construction time is so variable right now that you might be able to get a house built in 12 months. But for that size, yeah, I agree it should, but
What would you say is a reasonable construction period?
I would give it 2 years.
Okay, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a number.
Yeah.
But the point is that there are milestones that you have to meet. The first milestone is that you have to start construction. Okay, and anybody that wants to do construction, the bank or the financier is going to be leaning on them to complete the construction with a period of time. So 2 years would probably be more than generous. I think that once they break ground to do the construction, would be motivated to finish it. Because they're going to want to move in or they're going to want to flip it and sell it to somebody else.
Sure. So then if Mr. Hubler sells the lot and the next owner doesn't do anything with it and this reverts back to just land with no
Then they
variance,
can't build on it.
they would have to come
Because they
back.
didn't meet the 2-year window to commence. And let's say they did, okay,
Mhm.
then they have year, 2 years, whatever the number is, I don't care. It's just a finite time frame to complete it.
By putting the time frame on there, is your concern that this will get lost like 10 years later and we go around in a circle again for another?
No, this is gonna run with the land. It's gonna be a record, so it's gonna be there for someone who buys it. If they do their due diligence, they're gonna see this. Okay, it's just that it brings closure to the issue. And I think it sets a good precedent. Though your point is well taken, you know, the number of lots that may even be vacant now may be irrelevant, but I think it shows a reasoned decision as to bringing closure to this thing. It holds them to an obligation to perform. You know, the city's not going to sit there and go, "Where in the heck are you guys going to finish this thing?" Okay, gives him an out if he wants to sell the lot, but you know, the people are buying it. Caveat emptor, buyer beware. You know, they better be an informed buyer.
Any discussion on this topic? By adding a time limit to the motion?
And I just asked, so this 2-year window that we're talking about would that be 2 years to get something approved to actually start construction, or that be 2 years to have something to go? I mean, I assume-
No, it's a great question. Let me try to clarify at least what my thoughts were on that. The 2-year initial time period means you have to break ground and commence construction within that 2-year time period from today's date. Then 24 months to complete the project.
Okay.
But it is a hard deadline. So, you know, if someone's going to build on this lot, if you're going to sell it to somebody, you know, they're going to, or maybe you build it and you sell it or whatever. Okay, they're going to have to get the approvals and all the other requirements of the city and approvals and things like that. None of those are waived. This is just giving you the opportunity to do something on this lot, which you otherwise would not be able to do, but for the variances.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, sure.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead. Do you have more?
No, I don't know. I'm not sure if a time frame is necessary, but I think that's probably something what we vote on, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
The first motion was stated without any time frame. Mr. Ganell, would you like to restate it
I think
with
you
a
have to-
timeframe?
I think you have to have a motion, Vic, is this right? You have to have a motion that says, move that the variances be approved with supplementary conditions, which are, and then state those.
That is accurate, yes.
Okay.
Okay,
So we have something if you'd like.
So someone needs to make a motion to that effect and then state what the supplemental conditions are. Then we would need a second as to that, and then you could take your vote.
Okay, I'd like to do that. I motion that the two variances be approved, but with supplementary conditions be imposed upon those. And should I say what I think those are?
I think you should, yes.
Okay, the supplementary conditions are such approval of the two variances of these supplementary conditions shall run with the land, i.e. parcel 417 for a period of 24 months from 11/21/22. As an additional supplementary condition, I also motion that the owner of the parcel 417 or the buyer of parcel 417 from the applicant must commence construction of a single home family that complies of the two approved variances before us today within 24 months from 11/21/22 and complete the single family home within 24 months from the start of the construction, or this approval coupled with these supplementary conditions shall automatically become null and void, and the same shall be deemed to have never been approved, and thus any contemplated construction occurring outside the foregoing timeline may only be undertaken with a new and separate application to the approval of the Sunbury Planning and Zoning Commission and or Sunbury's Board of Zoning Appeals, as the case may be. Lastly, I further move that all construction of the single home family shall be in full compliance with all applicable laws, rules, ordinance, conditions, regulations to the extent that same have not been specifically modified by this approval and supplementary conditions.
I am not going to be able to restate that, but,
So we'll ask for a copy of that for the record.
okay.
Yeah, but
Thought you might.
Would anybody like to second that?
Can I interrupt before you second that, if you do second it? Okay, you're saying 417,
Is that
493, it's lot 493.
493.
Okay, the first three digits of the parcel number is 417. That's not the lot number.
I said parcel 417.
Okay, so you're identifying it as a tax parcel.
That's what the materials came to me. I mean, we can say parcel 417 lot, what is it? 493. So why don't we write in there
It's
parcel
417.
417 lot 493? That's a good clarification.
Yeah, because there's thousands of them that are 417.
Okay, I mean, that's fine.
Sunbury's
Yeah,
idea.
but we want to get it right.
Yeah, that's all I was doing.
No, that's a good
All
point.
lot number.
I would take out any reference to the parcel number.
Okay, then just say
It's lot
owner
493.
of lot 4.
Applicant as to the subject property. Application is as to the subject property.
I just want to get it identified right.
That would be helpful.
So can I just sum up what I think I heard before we make a second? Is that appropriate or?
Yeah, I don't think so, because I think you're voting on that motion. So to the extent the members need to see in writing what is going to be the addendum, I'd say go ahead and do that. But I think if you sum it up, you might be summing it up
Okay,
somehow differently than what
okay.
Mr. Ganell just said, and for the record, may not be good. So let's make sure we know what we're talking about. So,
Can we see your write-up?
Yeah, sure.
then?
Pass it down. Take a read of that if you want.
That's this.
Yeah.
Number 2 here.
Well, all that.
Okay. Mr. Whitman.
Let me read it. I just want to be like, I watched you read it. I heard it.
All right, so a motion was made. Do we have a second for that motion? Anybody like to make a second?
I'll second.
All right, there's a second. Mr. Hennessy, would you take a roll call, please?
All right, Mr. Grinnell,
Yes.
Mr. Whitman,
Yes.
Mr. Long,
No,
Ms. Crawford,
Yes.
Ms. Frost.
Yes.
All right, motion approved 4-1. Yes, 4-1.
Is there any further discussion before us, or can we close the session?
I think it'd be appropriate to close the public hearing at this point.
Right, it is now 6:31. I would like to close the public hearing.
Portion of the night's agenda, and then you can continue on the agenda.
Yes. I would like to close the public hearing for this portion of the agenda.
Second.
All right, Ms. Whitman or Ms. Frost,
Yes.
Ms. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Long. Yes. Mr. Whitman,
Yes.
Mr. Grinnell.
Yes.
5 yeas. Public hearing closed.
And I think the only thing you have left is your next meeting, item 6.
All right, so our next meeting, we have December 19th at 5:30, if there is anything listed for us to discuss. All right,
As of right now, I
So
don't-
currently, it's
Yeah, I was gonna say, we don't have anything at the moment, but keep you posted.
I would make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All right, Ms. Frost,
Yes.
Ms. Crawford,
Yes.
Mr. Grinnell,
Yes.
Mr. Long. Yes. And Mr. Whitman.
Yes.
5 yeas, we are adjourned.
Thank you. It's been approved.
Yeah. Are we stopped? We are adjourned.
do you have some type of like procedure or administrative question? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm saying an administrative question, probably better. Yeah, it's adjourned. You've been granted. You've been approved.